Bonjour et bienvenue à la 17e épisode du podcast Talkin Carball. Je m'appelle Austin et je suis ici avec mon bon ami Colin. Je viens d'avoir 15 ans et Colin est sur le point d'avoir 15 ans. Nous aimons jouer Rocket League et utiliser le Fennec. Le prochain major sera le nôtre.
I only understood like half of that.
Are we SSLs yet?
Because we're French. We use the Fennec.
Yes, and we're about to turn 15. And we're really excited to play Rocket League.
Unfortunately for the French community, though, this was the tournament of the British.
But it was the tournament of one young Frenchman.
One young Frenchman. I'm very excited to talk about.
Yes.
But we'll get there later.
Yeah. But just in case you don't speak any French, this is the Talkin Carball podcast. You know the deal. Follow the socials, do the things, blah, blah, blah. What news we got?
Away decals.
Hey.
Away decals are here. They're all white, except for some of them. One of them is very cheesy.
Dude, the Queso one is so sick.
My bank account will be hurting.
It is so sick. There's a lot of criticism of the first round of decals. People are like, why are all these blacked out? And the org decided to go the opposite direction. maybe
that was always the plan.
Yeah, I guess maybe that way it's sort of like more planned. Did you see Rogues? They literally look pretty much the exact same.
Yeah, it looks the same. I'm not entirely sure.
Darker shade of blue. They should have made the primary like the orangish yellow color.
Yeah. And then they also added team decals for complexity and luminosity, right?
Okay. I know I saw complexity. I didn't know about luminosity. Did they add ones?
I'm not sure on luminosity actually, but Misfits definitely has them.
Okay. Like 50 different people have submitted luminosity concept decals on Reddit and Twitter, so it's hard to keep track at this point.
What else we got? Farah retired.
Yeah, slightly delayed announcement.
Luminosity announced their roster, which everyone already knew.
Yeah, very shocking.
Dapper is going to be playing for Magic Bear, who's stepping down for a bit for mental health.
Yeah, going to be interesting. Hopefully we see Magic Bear come back at some point. I feel like most of the time when like a young pro retires from mental health, not that Magic Bear says he's retiring, but most of the time when they do leave, they usually end up coming back, if not, a little rejuvenated. So hopefully that's what's happening for him, because it would be sad to lose such an immense talent just sort of like when his career is hopefully just beginning.
Yeah, definitely a hit for Torrent, because I think Magic Bear is really good. But Dapper is a capable player as well. So he might be one of the best subs that teams have right now. So hopefully they don't step back too far.
Yeah. I don't think they were going to do anything crazy this split, and I certainly wouldn't predict it anymore. So hopefully they can just put together some good results.
Yes. The next piece of news is Elevate signs Novus Ivy down in Sam. The top team in Sam, so good for them getting signed.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with some top players like Tander, obviously last year was on Furia, so the fact that he won a whole split without an org is kind of the same, and like PJ and Luke have been around for forever, so they didn't have the best weekend necessarily this weekend, but they definitely could be a team that has major contention.
Yep. And then our last piece of news for now is RBG is looking to sell their roster to someone else. And Cloud9 has hit everyone with another coming back to Rocket League bait that probably won't come true.
Yeah, they do love that, don't they?
They love it.
But for obviously this isn't the type of team that's gonna lure in like a Cloud9,
No.
100 Thieves, like like a lot of people want. But for sure, like they deserve a salary and a good org backing them. So exciting news. Hopefully for the players. I think this is a positive. I think that their like value as a team has gone up probably more than when they signed their contracts with RBG.
For sure, for sure. And that will bring us to the breakdown of the greatest Rocket League regional of all time. Cheese, 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 cheese.
Oh my god, Europe absolutely living up to the reputation of pure chaos. Where do we even start with this? My god.
Cheese, cheese, cheese.
I don't think we're going to start with cheese. But we can start with Group A.
Group A, standings were BDS, Luminosity, Singularity, and 0-0 Nation. Tough performance from 0-0 going 0-3, not getting out. BDS sweeps. I didn't actually watch any of this, so I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, I didn't watch it either, but I know that sort of like the consensus was that Luminosity looked really good, and they lost in Game 5 to BDS. And so kind of tough. Just this format is so brutal that they got second place. End up getting sent down to the lowers and drawing Dignitas in the first round. And so I think that's sort of like the biggest storyline coming out of this group is that even though LG didn't necessarily like, if you look at the standings, it didn't look like they had a good performance this major. But I think losing Game 5 to BDS and Game 4 in a pretty tight series against Dignitas is not something to scoff against.
Yeah, I think they'll be around.
For sure, they are way too talented not to be. But Singularity, hype for them to after not making it a single regional last split to not only make this one but also get to that extended time. I guess they didn't make it to a second day because this format's weird, but they got to. Oh wait, they did.
Yeah,
they did. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Good performance all around for Singularity.
Yes. Group B. Cheese, cheese, cheese.
Cheese indeed.
Team Queso tops the group, going 3-0. Misfits second, Dignitas third, and predictably Rix in fourth. Or not predictably because you picked Queso in fourth. Just gonna bring that one out. Although you did nail every single one of your other predictions.
And
so,
to be clear, I predicted Rix third. But I did say that I was going to get fourth. Don't get it twisted. There are two other teams in the group.
Yes, there are. And Queso beat all of them.
Yes, they
podcast.
Did. Yeah.
Not smug at all.
you want to hear smug? Just you wait until we get to Group C.
I mean, oh yeah.
But this
we've also gotten plenty of from Johnny and Stumpy on the broadcast with their perfect brackets.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty crazy by them, to be honest. Even though I think it was probably more of a meme at the beginning. But the most interesting thing, other than obviously Cheese coming up on top here, was it looked like it was probably going to be a rough weekend for Dig. I mean, you'd expect them to be able to head-to-head take down both Queso and Misfits, just like sort of like purely on paper, and they weren't able to do either of those. So put them into the lower bracket. We'll get into that later, but it ended up being a decent weekend for them.
Yeah, Dig with an interesting series against Misfits. They scored 9 goals in 5 games, and also 9 goals in 2 games, as they were shut out 3 times.
That's kind of a little bit of the Dig factor. I feel like no team puts up more like 5+ goal games than Dig, and there are times where their like offense just isn't working.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you take Group C.
Group C. Colin ridiculed me, said they were getting third, and they very easily could have. But Group C, Williams Resolve coming on top. For definitely the craziest group we had. And I think coming in, it was going to be the hardest one to predict. But Williams Resolve went 2-1. Evil Geniuses went 2-1. Semper also went 2-1. Poor Cuxer's Minions going 0-3 with a game score of 3-9. But Williams able to ice it out. They were able to reverse sweep Evil Geniuses in a best of 5 in round 1, and then it went to game 5 again between those two teams in the tiebreaker match. And Williams showed that they had the ice in their veins on that day.
Yeah, so the way the tiebreakers work in the 2-1 situation is based on goal differential. The top two teams play a tiebreaker for that one slot, and then the third team stays there. If there's 3, 1, and 2 teams, I believe the best goal differential is in as the 2 seed, and the bottom 2 do a tiebreaker to see who survives.
Can I speak candidly?
Yes.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Don't get me started on formats and rules right now, especially with current NFL issues.
Oh my god. I didn't think you'd want to dig up that trauma.
All right, Group D, moving on. Group D had basically 3 teams auto-qual because Navi was playing 2v3 and actually ended up forfeiting one of the series. I believe Virtuoso had the worst Octane rating of all time because he literally couldn't play the game.
Hey man, we've all been there when you're just trying to play a ranked game and for some reason your internet just is crapping all over itself and you're sitting there and the ball's teleporting around. But none of us have been there where that happens on RLCS days, so you really got to feel for Navi here. And Vitality popping off. Coming back after getting swept by Queso to 3-0 Navi. So that was a big moment for Vitality.
Yeah, Endpoint wins the group, Carmine in second, Vitality in third. Pretty much how I think most people would draw it up at this point.
Yeah.
No one has any faith in Vitality.
Yeah, that's how I drew it up.
But moving in to the playoffs, we'll stick with Vitality here. They won. They beat Evil Geniuses in a best of 5. They're not dead yet.
No, and I think I said last time that they will do whatever it takes this season to not have to make a roster change. And I think hanging around that 6 to 8 spot where it's like, ooh, will they, won't they make the major is going to just about do it. So I expect to see Vitality hanging around lower round 2 in the lower quarterfinals. They're going to make at least day 2 every time, and it's going to be lame.
Let's see. Our other series, also actually going back, tough for Evil Geniuses. You know, they were right off that major spot in the fall. Here they lose the tiebreaker match to Williams that would have guaranteed them top 6, and then they lose in another game 5 to Vitality, putting them at what, like 12th?
Yeah,
I think.
I feel like this team is kind of like permanently getting gate kept. Like they're always sort of like in the big moments there on the cusp, but they really like haven't been able to break through, which was kind of the reason why I wanted them to make a roster change this offseason, because I feel like that's just like nothing against any 3 of those players, but I feel like sometimes like teams sort of like hit a wall and it sort of just takes like something new to sort of like break through that, and this just sort of like affirms that worry for me that they might sort of be stuck here for a little while longer.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair concern to have.
Especially like if Vitality are probably going to be that gatekeeping team.
Yes, they will. And then we had Singularity beat Misfits in the lower round 1. Tough look for Misfits. Probably a series they should be winning, but congrats to Singularity there.
Yeah, I mean the Singularity roster is talented, but I mean pretty much just echoing exactly what you said. You would hope for a team as good as Misfits, like with the quality they had in the first two regionals last split and just purely in the player ability. But hopefully they can regain from this. I mean, it's a step up from last major, so I mean, that's about all the copium I got.
Yeah, and just for everyone out there who can never remember the Singularity roster like me, it's Chippy, Justice, and Polar.
Yeah, the former denied boys plus Polar.
Yes. What else we got here? Luminosity versus Dig. We talked about this a little bit before. Dig had to regain, and regain they did. A tight series, you know. The last two games were both 2-1 in favor of Dig. This is not the last we've seen of Luminosity.
No, and like they did a good job of hanging in there, which, to be honest, for like most teams, playing Dig in this lower bracket run is would be sort of like the end goal, just because they were playing so very well this entire tournament. And you're 100% right. We'll see these guys again as long as they can keep their mental together. It's such a stacked group of 3 players.
Yeah, for sure. And then our last game of Friday, Carmine versus Semper in a heavyweight battle for 9 through 12.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't get to see this series, but this has got to be the biggest result Carmine's had in a little while. I mean, I guess their group, they pulled in some decent results, but beating Semper, a top 4 team, when it really matters, that's pretty big for them.
Yeah, and a tough look for Semper. They're gonna have to. There's a couple, potential major teams from last split that are in this 9 through 12 that are really gonna have to claw their way back up if they want to make the winter major in a very competitive Europe.
Yeah, I mean, all 4 of these teams that went out right here, Misfits, EG, Luminosity, and Carmine, were all teams that were relatively close Semper, sorry. Were all teams that were relatively close or made it.
Yeah.
In my head, I just think Semper is probably going to handle Carmine, so got to overcome that even when I'm looking at it straight on. But you're right. These teams are probably going to have to pull out a top 3 at least at some point if they're going to qual.
Yes. And that'll take us to day 2, where it started off similarly to the American day 2 with a couple sweeps. Dignitas swept Carmine, Vitality swept Singularity.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot going on here.
The only real talking point I have is this was the specific moment where I officially gave up hope for Carmine. I have no more. I'm officially on the stance that this roster does not work.
Yeah, they need something different.
Yeah. And you hate to like point all fingers at one player, but I think it's more like of a result of the system, because Stake can be that guy. Like on the original Giants roster, he was that guy who was putting in shots and was kind of like the Iceman for that team. But there's just something in the way that the other 2 play that makes him seem completely uncomfortable almost all the time. So I think it's more just like the sum of these parts is not better than their like individual ability.
For sure.
In fact, it's worse.
It's worse. Yes.
Yeah. But Singularity just got bodied.
Yeah, that was not a exciting series at all.
Yeah, and it looked like maybe Vitality had sort of like figured something out. They were playing hyper aggressive in that series. In particular, Fairy was getting a lot of demos and going for a lot of demos, which I think you cited the stat before on the podcast that he had like the least demos per game, like in pretty much anywhere
Yeah.
up until this season. So if Vitality can innovate, maybe that'll get the pulse going a little bit, but beating Singularity doesn't really do it.
Yeah.
Especially when you can see the rest of the bracket.
Yes. Do we want to keep going through the lowers for now? Actually,
Yeah,
no,
those
we have to go upper
yes, yes,
to figure out how their opponents got here.
yes.
So Team BDS versus Team Endpoint in the upper semis. BDS wins 4-1. Yeah. I watched this. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched this, but I have zero memory. I think it was just kind of classic BDS. Saiku was insane this tournament. I don't remember if it was this series or I think it was probably the Vitality one where he hit like a flip reset catch to put it like
God.
across his car top corner. That was one of the nastiest goals I've ever seen. And I think it's reached the point almost officially where like he is the last player I think arguably in the world that you want to give space to because there are so many different ways that he can beat you and he's just continually getting better it seems.
Yeah, I don't. He's really good.
Like the only person I can think of that can do more is maybe Justin.
Yeah, I mean, they're two just extremely creative players on the ball, and you really don't know what's coming when they're on it.
Yeah, but it wasn't enough, and BDS looked really good on Saturday.
Yeah, and that takes us to, I think, probably the most exciting series of the whole event, this upper semi between Queso and Williams Resolve. Game 7, there were 5 overtime games, and Queso pulled it out.
It was absolutely insane. It was sort of like the classic Rocket League unstoppable force meets an immovable object with Queso just banging their head against the backboard and Williams holding on and scoring important goals, and it was just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it felt like Case or Williams was just pinned back there over like so much. They were just pinned on their own end, and then they'd get one demo, one counterattack, and they would score every time they got a shot off.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. Like watching this series, I was like, okay, like whoever loses this game is gonna be done because they're gonna play Dig, and neither of them looked good enough to take on Dig. And whoever wins this series is gonna get bodied by BDS. And one of those ended up being true, and the other didn't. But neither of them looked like they were playing. They were playing what looked like to the best of their abilities, but not at a high enough level to compete with. Like it looked like there was going to be a very clear top 3 in Europe of BDS, Endpoint, and Dig, just like in NA. But one of these teams decided they didn't like that narrative.
Yes, we'll get to them in a little bit.
Yeah.
Endpoint comes down and just there's like, Vitality, you don't belong here anymore. This isn't your region. You're done here.
Yeah, absolutely walloped them. And I think it's exciting to see Endpoint at this point. Like you can't be doubting them anymore, but it's exciting to see them prove that they can be consistent. Just because that was sort of the one piece that people were holding over them last split.
Yeah, I don't know. The Endpoint name doesn't always inspire confidence for some reason, but this team should. They're consistent. They're consistently up there, and I would be shocked to see them miss the major.
Yeah, at this point, that's just seems impossible.
And then our other lower quarters, Dig is absolutely tearing through the lower bracket at this point, outscoring Williams Resolve 15-3 in a 4-game series here.
Yeah, I think Williams were kind of boomed after such a close series against Team Queso, and then they got literally boomed by demos and just pure speed of Dignitas. And yeah, not much more to say there. Great tournament for them. Not the best finish.
Yeah, not quite. And then the next game up was the upper bracket finals between Team Queso and Team BDS. And I don't entirely know what happened to BDS. on Saturday night, but they did not show up on Sunday at all.
No.
They got clean swept by Queso in the upper bracket, only scoring 2 goals and shut out in the last 2 games, which was the start to a trend.
Your question of what happened to BDS on Saturday night, I raise you an equally unanswerable question. What happened to Queso on Saturday night? Because they obviously BDS were not playing to the best of their ability, but they looked unreal on Sunday.
Yeah, Team Queso woke up and they had their Wheaties for breakfast. They had BDS pinned in like I've never seen before. It was insane. Challenges were just flying. They were faster. They were more creative. They were just better than BDS. BDS had chances. Their shooting was atrocious too.
Yeah, and there were a lot more like mechanical mistakes from BDS than you normally see. Normally they play at like a breakneck speed, but they almost never like mess up. And a lot of like the goals that Queso were getting were, Queso was putting on relentless pressure, but there was like one where Mark like double popped his jump instead of flipping and let in an easy goal. Like there were just like slightly just things that you never see from BDS. But I think it says more. I want to give more credit to the pressure that Queso was putting on, and they were really able to diversify their offense. It wasn't just them being oppressive on the backboard. They were throwing out some infield passes, some team passing plays, and getting so much value off their demos. They played just it was incredible to watch, honestly.
Yeah, they were insane. I'll go full in on Team Queso once we get to the grand finals.
Yeah.
But for now, the lower semis, Dignitas versus Endpoint. Dignitas was on a mission to make this lower bracket run.
Yeah, this was subtly a banger series, but it feels like it kind of got shrouded out by the fact that Dig didn't win and that there were still so many more games left to be played.
Yeah. 4-2 to Dig. They looked really good here. Endpoint, I know Wave had COVID, so he wasn't able to boot camp with the other two. So we've seen in the past they've won both. Did they win the other one? Did they win 2? Yeah, they won 2 regionals. They won both regionals that they were able to boot camp in the fall, and have not won the 2 regionals that they have not been able to fully boot camp.
Yeah, hopefully they're able to get that back. It obviously seems to be really, really important to their ability to support it. I mean, they just play better. There's not really any other point to make there. And like at this point, Dignitas were just looking insane because Endpoint played a good series, but I think especially like Jack was on pure redemption arc. Heartbreak Jack was absolutely pounding his shots. I don't think he just wasn't missing, and Scrub was all over the field in assists. The only player I felt like wasn't playing to their absolute peak was Joria's, just because his peak is just completely and utterly absurd. And so I think that this team, the scary thing is I think they can be even better.
Yeah. But they could not have been much better in the next series. Dignitas versus BDS. BDS, after getting shut out in the last 2 games versus Team Queso, come in to play Dig and get perfect swept. The first ever perfect sweep in a best of 7 in NA or EU history.
Pretty hilarious that the team that received it was BDS.
Yeah. And they got walloped. At one point, Extra put in the chat, can we please just score 1?
In game 4, Extra was in a SWAT Merc. Monkey Moon was in a battle bus. And Mark was in a Fennec with a surfboard and I think a musty flag.
Yeah.
They
was
were
not great. I'm not entirely sure what the team vibes were because at one, obviously they played horrible, and when Extra and Monkey Moon left the game to go switch their cars, the admins were like, to Mark, car switch, and he said, I don't know, which means that maybe their communication yesterday or on Sunday was not fully there.
yeah,
Definitely something they've had problems with in the past.
And not to play armchair psychologist too much, but both like after the game, both Extra and Monkey had like tweets like basically memeing and just sort of like having fun with what happened, and Mark had nothing. But I think that like we've seen other teams sort of like when they're down in a series, not throw per se, but sort of like give into the fun and not take it so seriously. Doesn't it feel like really weird to have the team do it be BDS? Like after they've just been so consistent and so serious for so long, it just feels so weird.
Yeah, like because Energy did the same thing at the major, but that seems more on brand with them. Pretty sure Justin legitimately hates Rocket League sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's just so good. So, but yeah, to see BDS like this was weird.
Yeah, and I think like during the game, like it was Stumpy and Cole casting, and they didn't even really know how to react. But with all these things, like fundamentally, it still is just kids playing a game, and whatever like feels the best for their mental in the moment. I just like don't criticize, don't throw them hate. Like it is a job, but it also isn't. Like I don't know. It's just a lot of times there can be a lot of negativity around this, and it's their game to lose, not yours. So I part of me was almost kind of happy to see them cut loose a little bit, just because they've been to see Mark, and even though he wasn't in anything as crazy as those, but to see him in a Fennec was hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, game 4, they'd already lost 3 in a row. They were not winning that series.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what they did. Dignitas was going to win. I'm sure BDS would have liked to at least score 1 goal. But Dig was not going to let that happen.
Yeah, I don't think BDS will care in the long run either. They proved with the major that they can pull out their top drawer abilities whenever they want to, and this is still a top 3. So
yeah,
it's not like they're down bad.
Yeah. And that'll bring us to the grand cheesy final. Team Queso takes the major, or takes the regional, beating Dignitas 4-1, and just looking like the best team in the world on that day. They were flying around like lunatics, just moving faster. It was insane to watch.
Yeah, they were so oppressive, and to do that against a team as fast and mechanically talented as Dignitas is just purely and utterly ridiculous. And I think that so much needs to be said about the ice in the veins that Vatira has. In that Williams series, he was the one who scored an super clutch, super hard to hit double tap to ice that series. And in the Dignitas, game 5 was really coming down to the wire. It was tied 1-1, and with like 5 seconds left, Vatira put a shot top bins, and my God, can these boys play?
Oh my God, they are absolutely cooking. They legitimately, I've never seen Jack and Jorius look less mechanical. And not because they weren't mechanical, it was because the people on the other side were just so good. Also, this game was just constant air dribbles.
Yeah.
It was just air dribble back and forth the whole way.
Yeah. I also want to give some shouts out to Rise. This dude, there's a lot of like jokes or like sort of like around being sort of like the quiet player on the team, being the enabler. but the sheer amount of like off the ball stuff that he was doing was just ridiculous. He was getting so many demos, and not just demos, high value demos, also because anytime he crept forward, like, and was chasing someone, Vatira and Joyo just recognized it instantly and immediately like went to make a play. And he would always, like, on his rotations, he would like hang back, and like, so I think you pointed out, like, he wouldn't boost on his way back, just like waiting for a downfield pass. They just had like such full trust in each other and just played such a complete game.
I want to give a Rise stat. He had the second most stolen boost of anyone in the tournament per game.
Have you looked up what his goals per game in the finals was?
0.2, I'm looking at it right now.
I have that memorized. But he was playing so good, just
led the
in his
team in
role.
assists. He pulled out, obviously everyone had the saves, but he pulled out some absolutely nutty saves with like 12 boost pre-jumps right on the goal line. The entire team defends in a weird way, kind of, where they, instead of defending like from the goal, like most teams do, they kind of defend like sideways. So like the person that's furthest back never makes the challenge. It's always someone coming out of nowhere from the side and just like terrifying you and just surprising you and getting it clear. And just like the outplay ability from everyone on that team, they can all carry the past one player and like clear the ball easily.
Yeah, I'm just like, fingers crossed, everything crossed. I'm hoping and praying that they can return to this level again, because I don't think they necessarily played to this level for the entire tournament. And so there are like a couple question marks, but it didn't feel like it was one player peaking. They were peaking as a team, so I think it is achievable for them again.
Yeah, and I mean it was a perfect tournament for them. They went 3-0 in groups, went to the winners, and won it without the bracket reset. So they didn't necessarily have the hardest run in history, but they beat Dignitas twice, Misfits, BDS, and Williams, who are a solid team. This team has improved every single regional they've been in. They've gotten better.
They were the only team in the entire tournament to beat Dignitas, and to be honest, no one else even really got close. So that just shows how good that team they were playing in the grand final was, and they manhandled them. Absolute redemption arc for Joyo.
Yes.
I remember like over a year ago when Jorias and Jack were sort of like bursting onto the scene. Johnny had both Jorias and Jack on his podcast, the Saltcast. And I remember hearing about the team they had together back in the day, Georgia Joe, or Georgia Joe.
Yeah.
And I had completely forgotten that Joyo was the third piece of that. They all teamed together on PlayStation, and he just took a little bit longer to come to the spotlight.
And apparently, according to the coach, all three of these players had opportunities for tryouts. I think between the splits and at the beginning of the year, including the dig spot, and they turned them down to stick with this team because they believed in it.
Respect, man. And sort of like what you're talking about there too, I think that whoever is running behind the scenes, like the team manager for Queso, if it has been the same person the past 2 years, deserves immense credit, because they have picked up two teams that were sort of like on the bubble, and I can't think of any other team almost in RLCS history that has won two major events with two completely different rosters. So that
I have a stat for you here. Only two teams in RLCS X and RLCS 21-22 history have won an event with no players that participated in RLCS seasons 1 through 9 or RLRS. Team Queso and Team Queso with two completely different rosters.
Yeah, so whoever is doing the recruiting for that org, my God, that is a really, really, really incredible statistic.
They also are the first team to win a regional coming from the closed qualifier.
Yeah, they just shattered every expectation and every piece of history that you could imagine with this run.
I was very happy. I was a happy boy.
Yeah, if you weren't happy, then you just hate fun. You hate whimsy.
All right, but that I think wraps up our recap. Do we want to do a quick major prediction from this regional?
Yeah, so like a little sort of like top 5 power rankings, kind of
Top
sort of.
5, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
I'll go first. This
Mhm.
is not. It's a major prediction, so it's not fully in order.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go Team Queso. Just I think winning an event gives you a huge boost. I think as long as I get top 8s, top 6s throughout, they'll probably still make it.
Yeah, and they're gonna have a good seeding hopefully for the next event too, which will help because just getting out of your group first is such an important thing. So I back that. Second team, I think that's going to qualify. Pretty obvious. I think Dignitas have got to be a shoo-in. Just with the level that they've shown in the past couple events, this team is making major, and they will. I think there are a few teams I would bet more money on to possibly win the next major than Dignitas.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm gonna go for the third team. As long as I remember how to score a goal, Team BDS will be there.
Yeah. Still have yet to finish outside the top 4 for a single event this entire fall.
And
So
they haven't won a regional yet.
Yeah.
But they did win the major.
They're just onliners, man. Fourth team, I think it's a pretty clear top 4 at the moment, with Queso being obviously we're all predicting Queso to be in that top 4. But the fourth team has got to be Endpoint. They have looked good in pretty much every tournament they've played, bar one, and they have one of the greatest talents we have in all of Rocket League and Saiku.
Yeah. And then we get the weird spot.
Mm-hmm.
This fifth major spot. I'm looking at the current standings,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like any of the teams in 5th through 8th to make it, to be honest. I'm looking at that 9th to 12th block right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where to go.
You know who's slotting in there, right?
It's either Semper or Luminosity.
You know who's gonna slot in there, right?
Who you got? You got this. You're gonna say Williams. Oh, it's Vitality.
Evil always wins. They're gonna do it somehow, just purely by everyone else sucking.
I mean, they're there right now. They're in that spot.
Okay, team I actually believe has the potential to be a top 5 team and sort of separate from the rest of those teams actually is Luminosity.
Yeah, I'm gonna go that. I agree with that.
And then put in parentheses Vitality.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't be horribly surprised if Semper gets like 4th the next 2 events and then somehow sneaks in because everyone else just collapsed.
That's doable for them. I mean, that's where they should be. They should be firmly in that like 4th spot. So I could see that, but I think that I can't see Semper really making like top 3 or top 2. I can see a tournament where Luminosity gets top 2.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Semper did get top 4 at the major.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. It's irrelevant.
All right.
Archibald is good at Rocket League.
You heard it here first. Semper is irrelevant.
They're really very very relevant. I don't know.
Moving on to some other things that people may or may not consider irrelevant.
Okay.
Minor regions. I'm sorry. It was there. It was too good.
Brutal. That was brutal.
Sorry, minor regions, but you really didn't do yourselves a whole lot of favors this week. Nothing went according to plan in the minor regions, or just even the major region.
Yeah.
So the historic leader of Sam finished 7th to 8th. in Furia.
Mhm.
Noble Esports did the full lower bracket run to beat Crew Esports in the finals on a bracket reset.
Yeah, and Crew being a new roster, making it there to the finals, but that's definitely, I think, we saw two teams that looked like they could pull it off, and both EU and NA fall short. So absolute props to Noble for making that run and double 4-1ing the grand finals. That is sick.
Yeah. And Crew is a roster that I hadn't ever heard of before.
Hmm.
Or I don't know where they were last split, but yeah, they beat Air Eternity in the upper bracket, lost to Noble in the grand finals. But good performance from them.
Yeah, I'm looking around, and I think that it's pretty much a completely new roster. I know they picked up Jerfinho from Nova Saibi, and it looks like Bems came from somewhere else. But Crew itself is a big org in South America. It has the backing of Kun Agüero. So hyped to see them. You know, a lot of big orgs have struggled to enter Rocket League late, but they seem to have found a good squad, and they have a leg up on Furia, who's going to be chasing them for that second spot.
Yeah. Both Era and Fury are gonna have some work to do to make the major again.
Yeah, Arrow was top 3.
Yeah.
But
Let's go over to possibly the biggest upset of the weekend.
I don't know about that.
I mean, Tokyo Verdy losing in the grand finals to NIMT NIMD NIMMT 55.
Yeah, and getting bracket reset there as well.
Yeah.
I feel like
didn't. I know Tokyo has a new roster, so maybe they're still figuring it out, but interesting to see that.
It wasn't necessarily true in EU and NA, but I think there was like partial truth to it, where I think that a lot of the teams that went to Sweden sort of struggle with this first tournament, and I think there's a lot of things that could go into that. One, like the other teams have been in the off season for like 2 months at this point, as opposed to them like turning around from late December, like let alone like all the quarantining that a lot of people had to do like post travel, let alone like possibly like motivation. And so I don't think it's surprising to see some more parity and more of those teams like Furia and Verdi that have been historically dominant struggling. But I don't, you know, it's still certainly a surprise that they weren't able to pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, every single minor region team that went to the major did not do as expected in the first regional. It's a good point.
And a lot of them, like going back home, had even more stringent travel restrictions than teams from EU and NA. So, yeah, there's a lot more factors that go into a team's performance than just showing up in the server, but that certainly is a big part of it.
And then Sub-Saharan Africa, again, Orlando Pirates, the heavy favorite, got beaten by Bravado Gaming in the grand final. They actually got beat in the upper bracket final by them, and then again in the grand final, both 4-2.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think Orlando Pirates had pretty much even lost a series before this. So pretty cool. Props to Bravado, and hopefully this is just the next step in growing that scene into something more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Bravado is just looking at the scoreboard, Steven it. They look like they might have become a 2-team region because they also absolutely destroyed everyone they played.
Just looking at just how South African dominant this region is. Granted, there aren't many other countries.
There's a full French team.
Yeah, I see that.
There's 2 full French teams. And then everything else is South Africa.
Yeah, not super surprising, but that's kind
There's
of a
also one team called Barney and his dinosaurs.
different. And they freaking popped.
They did not. They won one game.
They popped.
All right. Let's go back to America.
God, it feels good to be home.
Yes. NA Regional Event 2 close qualify. Well, actually, before we even get into this, there was a tiebreaker apparently. RBG beat Charlotte Phoenix for the right to go directly to the closed qualifier and not to the open qualifier. But that didn't matter because Charlotte was like, you know what? Screw you. We're gonna beat you in game 5 and go to the event, and you're not.
As you look at
and by game 5, I mean round 5, not game 5.
Yeah, you just jumped forward like crazy.
Oh yeah, I did.
But the Charlotte RBG series is kind of wild. Game 7, the 2 OT series. Every other game is 1 goal, and Charlotte had to. And RBG had to forfeit the second game in the series after winning game 1. I'm very curious what the heck was happening there. But I just got a little distracted.
I don't know, but as for something for expert for the final 5 games.
That's kind of lit. Maybe RBG was trying to sell their team mid-series, and for like 5 minutes they weren't under contract.
Maybe.
But you want to get into the actual close qualifier event?
Actual close quals. So the teams that made it are Xset, Gentleman, Oxygen, Rogue, Sonics, Shopify, Charlotte, and NXT, which is formerly Nefarious. And Gentleman is formerly Integrity.
Yep, Integrity without Blaze.
Yes. And I have to issue an apology here. You wanted to talk about the power roster move, and I said there was no reason, as we would never talk about them again on this podcast. But they went and they made a close qualifier. So I'm proud of them for that. They did not make the event, but they went 2-3. So they were close.
Yeah, and they beat Vibrance and PK, which obviously weren't teams that were in top form in this event. Neither of them qualled, but that is by far the biggest thing we've ever seen out of Power.
Yes. Maybe they can make an event. The other teams that made the qualifier but didn't make it are RBG, Torrent, with Dapper, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't make it. Pittsburgh, Accelerate, Circuitry Gaming, who I don't know. Peep the Skill, Lunar, and Cam. Vibrance went 0-3, and Team EXE. After I was hyping up Vibrance last week, too. Went and did that to me.
Yeah, for them, that's incredibly uncharacteristic. I don't think we've ever seen them down this bad, but I think they'll regain.
I agree, but it's time for the Mobile 1 Mountain Classic, right? No, I have it written down wrong. That's a different event. This is the Rocket League 351.
What?
I don't know what that means. But that's what it's called.
So they're obviously trying to really cement in the Rocket League 3 branding. So that's good. Now we just got to figure out what the 5-1 means.
No.
Okay.
So I have the groups here as given to us by the fine folks of Reddit. So Group A, NRG, Version 1, Rogue, and Gentleman. Group B is Phase, Oxygen, Ghost, NXT. C is G2, Envy, Xset, and Sonics. And D is Complexity, Space Station, Rebellion, and Charlotte.
I think slightly more balanced groups here just by the eye test.
Yeah, I would say Group A looks really strong with V1 and a Rogue making up those two teams.
Mm-hmm. C on
Yeah.
paper is really strong if you go off last split.
If you go off last split, C is insanely stacked. If you go off this split, it's two teams that went 0-3 and one that got out of the group but lost in the first match after that. And then G2, who got what, 5th, 6th last time?
Yeah. So, just purely off name value, that's kind of a banger group, but
Yeah.
a lot of question marks around all three of those teams.
Yeah, but all 4 group winners from last time are split between groups A and B.
Interesting.
Yes. All right, let's get into prediction time. We have
RPG?
the RPG. I've done my randomizer this time. Maybe it's more fair. Maybe Austin will get an NA prediction right for the first time ever.
Hey, I'm just our EU correspondent.
We have the same number of EU picks correct across the entire.
Yeah, I'm the EU winter correspondent.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, when the weather changes, my predictions get better. So coming in to the 3rd spot in Group A. Oh man, I think it's pretty clear cut that most likely this is going to come down to V1 versus Rogue. I guess they're probably not going to play each other in the final round just due to the fact that it goes off seeding. And so I think I am going to say V1 are getting 3rd.
Wow. I'm okay with it though, because the disrespect to my teams has gotten really well for me in the past.
Yeah, I just think that Rogue are going to come out firing in this event, and I think that they are going to win that head-to-head. So that's I think it's going to be a banger series, and I don't think it has any indication on how far either team is going to go. But I just think purely in the group, I think both are going to probably lose to energy around roughly 3-1, go to game 5 against each other, coin flip who's going to win that, and then probably be gentlemen.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm predicting 4th for this bracket, and I'm going to have to go with gentlemen. The other 3 teams, I think gentlemen are pretty good. Mm-hmm. They don't have Blaze anymore, and the other 3 teams are just better.
Yeah,
it's 3 top 10 teams in our power rankings.
Yeah, and 2 teams that might even be higher after Regional 1 in the power rankings. But gentlemen, well, not Rogue. Gentlemen, this is an absolute redemption arc for Cheese and No Mansion. Because they made the first regional, didn't make a single one ever, lost arguably the best player on their roster, and now they're back and sweeping the closed quals. That's a pretty awesome story. I'm really happy for them, even if they just kind of get booped out of the group here. They deserve a ton of respect for what they did.
Absolutely. And Cheese, former Switch player. That's just
yes, sir. Representing.
I don't know how he did that. I watched a video recently. It was pro players on Switch or SSLs on Switch playing against other ranks, and it was hilarious.
Oh man.
They were I think they lost to champs.
I mean, I didn't need to know that. All right, Group B.
Group B, you're predicting the 2nd team. I'm predicting 1st. I will go 1st. Here, I am going to pick FaZe. I think this comes down to the 2 group winners, FaZe and Oxygen. Oxygen obviously won their group last time, but FaZe is too good.
Man, tough 2 predictions for you.
I got the 2-3 next though for C and D, which are going to be hard.
Yeah, but I think that 1 and 4 for these 2 groups is probably the easiest picks in the whole thing. No, 2nd place in this group, I am going to give it to Ghost. I think that they're going to regain after a rough first regional. They have a much more doable group here, and I think they're the exact kind of team that can frustrate Oxygen. And I think they're going to do that and take that second spot going 2-1.
I also wouldn't count out Nefarious making it through this group if either Ghost or Oxygen are off.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
would predict them
solid
getting
team.
third, but I wouldn't predict them getting second.
Group C, I am predicting number 2. You are predicting number 1.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
G2. I think this is going to be a breakout event for them. I'm predicting top 4 or better, and they're going to roll their group.
Number 2. So we have Exa and Envy who went 0-3 last time, and Sonics who went like 1-2, I think.
Mm. It's
None of these
about right.
teams inspire confidence, but Exa just swept the qualifier, so I'm going to give the 2 spot to Exa.
I can respect that.
I just don't believe it, Envy. I really don't.
I think they're going to look a lot better at this regional. I mean, anything is better, so I think they're going to make it out of the group, but obviously I'm not predicting a traditional Envy run. I could see them upsetting FaZe just purely for the Turbo storyline. That could happen. There's a universe where that works out somehow, and then G2 go on a crazy lower bracket run.
It's possible. We shall see. Group
We
D.
shall.
Complexity, Space Station Rebellion, and Charlotte. I'm predicting the 3rd spot. Let me look at this close qualifier again.
Mm-hmm.
Did Charlotte and Rebellion play each other? No.
Mm-mm.
They both went 3-2. They both lost to Torrent, beat Accelerate.
Lots of good things to go off here.
Shopify beat NXT while Charlotte did not. I think Shopify's a better team. They looked pretty good last time. I think top 2 are going to be SSG Complexity. Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Complexity, I'm expecting to have a event closer to their previous standard. And SSG is really good. So I'll give this to Rebellion, I guess.
Yeah. I think Charlotte's a good bubble roster. I really do. But I think that this group's a little too strong, and I think that Shopify is just probably a better team. And if those two play each other in the final round for the stakes, they have a lot more experience. So I think Charlotte's going to slot into that 4th slot. And for them, making a regional is something to celebrate. So no issues there.
Yeah. And that pretty much wraps up our predictions. Is there anything else we have here today for the people?
The people, nah, man. Thank you as always. If you're still listening, you're a real one. You can comment on YouTube. I'm a real one. I'll toss you a like. Tell your friends about the podcast if you know anyone that likes Rocket League or is interested.
Oh, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our viewers. I don't know what his name is, but someone gave us a shout out on Reddit the other day, and that actually made my day. So shout out to that guy.
Yeah, he shouts us out. we toss it right back. So, yeah, no, 100%. That was awesome to see.
Cheese.